All right, let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Animal. If you haven't been here before, or you haven't been following me for a while now, I'm Mel, the host of this channel. So lately I've actually really been into sports anime, so much so that I thought I'd take an opportunity to review a standalone movie that I feel like have elements of sports in it. Not only does it have elements of sports in it, it's a unique sport, maybe not unique sport, but a sport that is not talked about as often like the American footballs of the world or the soccer slash footballs of the world or the basketballs or the baseballs, the ones that everyone kind of knows everything or something about. And additionally, this is a movie recently released, and I feel like it's fun to talk about new releases, isn't it? So I'm taking the opportunity to actually sit down and review Bubble today. My overall thoughts, I'll get to it at the end of this video. So for those of you who haven't seen any trailers of Bubble, who haven't read the synopsis of Bubble yet, or seen what Bubble looks like, Bubble, for the most part, when I first saw the trailer, had elements of parkour in it. You can kind of tell right away if you've seen videos or anything related to parkour before. One of the reasons why I really gravitated towards it. But another reason, and first part of this review I'll talk about, is the visuals. The visuals of Bubble is absolutely astonishing. And I don't know if I mentioned it yet, but you can find Bubble on Netflix now. The visualizations of Bubble is astonishing. And just seeing from the trailers itself, just the vivid brightness of one, the bubbles within the film itself, and two, the characters were just stunning, eye-popping, and really easy to like draw you in. In talking about the character designs are also magnificent. For those of you who don't know or may have seen Death Note, the person who essentially did the character designs for Death Note also did the character designs for Bubble. Additionally, there's a lot of big name studios attached to Bubble, and if you saw my spring 2022 animes coming out, you'll know that Wit Studio, the studio who animated seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Attack on Titan, and is currently or has animated or is animating a very new show also within my spring 2022 video, Spy Family or Spy X Family. They're well known for their eye-captivating animation that seems to be well liked by almost all individuals that indulge in the anime space. So a lot of these reasons and a lot of what I've mentioned has made, I guess, the viewing experience of Bubble so captivating. Like, you'll watch it, and if nothing else within the movie captivates you, just the beauty of the visualization, the animation itself, the way characters are drawn, and the color palette, I would say. Is color palette the right word? Do we have any like art specific like majors or enthusiasts out there? I don't know. The art color palette is just like something to gush over completely. So basically what I'm saying is that the visuals of Bubble gets like an A+. And furthermore, the elements of parkour and how they're like emphasized on, just watching the muscles of the characters like kind of like work themselves and take shape, and just like the artistic form of an athlete that like gets what's the word for it? I don't want to say emphasized, but like emphasized or umphed a little bit more throughout the film. Like for me personally, as an athlete, I take great like joy in seeing things like that, and it also gives you like this like stimulation and excitement to want to try like new athletic things, right? So like if you're an athlete or you enjoy like exercising, physical activity, like you gain genuine joy from that. The way that it is animated and drawn, the type of parkour, like artistic movement of these characters is inspiring and very yeah, inspiring. Now, while the visuals itself were really amazing, we have to talk about the storyline itself. So after watching the film, you kind of get a sense that Bubble is actually staged in kind of like a post-apocalyptic world where Tokyo has kind of like exploded or something of that nature. Basically, all these bubbles came down and, you know, destroyed the whole like land structure of Tokyo, and now you've just got like buildings floating everywhere, kind of like gravity holes, just massive destruction, and all of Tokyo is encapsulated within this giant bubble. The rest of Japan seems to be intact, and that's where most of Japanese citizens live. No one really lives in Tokyo, but our main characters, as well as other characters who partake in these kind of like parkour extreme events and activities, kind of for like spoils of winnings, live within this bubble. Some, as the story goes, some say that it's people who have kind of been orphaned by the incident that has happened in Tokyo, don't really have anywhere else to go, so they kind of live within that bubble, and, you know, live out their lives doing parkour to gain materials to survive in there. Additionally, some part of our main characters, there's a scientist who's trying to better understand what has caused this astronomical physical phenomenon, geographical phenomenon that is happening in Tokyo, and, you know, still happening within the bubble itself. It's got a very interesting concept, definitely a different type of post-apocalyptic world that I guess hasn't been explored before. I guess when you really think about it, there can be an infinite type of post-apocalyptic worlds, but definitely a little different take. So I would say, one, it's refreshing, it's a new concept. Aside from there being parkour elements, the story itself is a new concept, but they take something kind of old that we're all familiar with from our childhoods. Basically, it's like also a really loose, structured story around Little Mermaid. Now, while I am reviewing this, I totally don't want to spoil the entire story, but I would say that it's very loosely based on the Little Mermaid. You've got like a Little Mermaid-esque character and a little Eric the Prince Eric-esque character. Not like in personality whole and whole, but just like the aspect of coming from two different worlds and one not belonging in the other person's world, so on and so forth. So for that reason, I would say it's definitely new, it's refreshing. I enjoyed a different take on the Little Mermaid for sure, and some of the elements of the story relating to the characters themselves. Our main character Hibiki has an interesting backstory. We start out with him being quite alone. My God, you guys, if you haven't noticed lately, I've had difficulty speaking only because I had some Invisalign put in. So the way that I enunciate my words and get tongue-tied sometimes is something that I'm learning to deal with at this moment. Alright, back to what I was saying. So Hibiki, our main character, we come to discover that he's actually quite a loner, has a team that he kind of like engages parkour activities in and competes with, but he doesn't really interact with them, and he's actually quite sensitive to noise. We get a little bit more on his backstory, and it seems like he was born with extra audio hypersensitivity, so he has a really hard time in digesting sound. Therefore, it contributes to his character design as to why he always has headphones with him. And we watch kind of like his story develop and how he kind of overcomes some of his auditorial challenges with some of the characters that he interacts with in the story. I would say for that, the Little Mermaid piece, and just kind of like some of the emotion behind the two main characters, Hibiki and Uta, I would say the story is like really touching, it's very heartfelt, and it's definitely unique in the fact that it's in a post-apocalyptic, unique bubble exploding world. I think that's the best way to put it, exploding bubble world. While Hibiki and Uta's interactions, the two main core characters of the story, is quite beautiful and cute. Definitely something that some people may cry over when you watch the movie all the way through. I would say that the rest of the characters that come within the story are lacking. He's got, as I mentioned, a whole team that he parkours with or competes with in parkour competitions, and it's like they have like no relationship whatsoever due to kind of like this auditorial sensitivity, hypersensitivity that he has. He's disengaged with a lot of people. But what's very strange is that when he starts to overcome it, it's like the build is very instantaneous. But we never get to really learn about any of the other stories. And there's a very specific character, ultimately, that I was interested in learning more about. This character's name is Shin. And Shin, like others, lost family within the bubble attack, and also evidently lost part of his leg. It seems like they seem to make some sort of not conclusions, but connections that he used to do parkour in the past. But they don't really develop more on his backstory. So like from that character's perspective alone, I felt like there could have been a little bit more work done. Granted, it's a movie, it's not a series, so there's only so much character backstory development that you can do. But for characters like that, where you start to, insinuate certain ideas and backstories about them, it leaves viewers, at least myself, a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a little bit more out of this specific character, especially since at some point in the movie, he becomes really instrumental to Hibiki's growth and what Hibiki's trying to accomplish. And then additionally, you've got like the antagonist of the movie. Like the antagonist of the movie, and this may tie back into the story a bit, while the story is very refreshing, the way the antagonists were first introduced and the way they were, brought in during the pivotal plot climax point, was very like disconnected. It almost came out of nowhere, like out of left field. Again, it's a movie, so there isn't a lot of time to really develop on certain characters, but I feel like the least that you can do is, put small like hints here and there as to like what the motif of the antagonist is, so that like when we see it coming, it's not like, oh, what a shock, or wow, did they really just do this? Because when it happened in the movie, and I know this sounds really vague, but I'm trying my best not to spoil it, when the pivotal climax point happens, or the first climax point happens in the movie, it's just like, why are they even doing this? Are they really doing this for something as basic as trying to get like YouTube views? I don't get it. So like, yeah, the characters, man, they really could have used some work. At least the antagonists and Shin, like those groups of characters deserved a little something more, And honestly, even Hibiki could have used a little bit more finessing, but we got what we got, and I think I'm okay with it. I could say that I have peace with how they wrote Hibiki's character. Now, the last thing that I'll touch upon, a theme that I found really interesting, and this kind of connects into one of my favorite things when it comes to anime, and that's audio/music. So, as I mentioned, our main character Hibiki was born with hyperauditory hypersensitivity. I think I said that twice, didn't I? Auditorial hypersensitivity, where he's really sensitive to noise, grew up with those really big muffled headphones on his head to help isolate really loud pitches or anything that would aggravate him or give him headaches. So essentially, the emphasis of sound, or lack thereof sound, is something that's really prominent in the film. And so there are a lot of empty void moments to help emphasize some plot points or emphasize some character moments within the movie, which I love. The use of sound, audio, music, or lack thereof in movies, I think, is so impactful that people don't realize how much what they're hearing is affecting the visual on the screen. So if you're blessed to have both sight and hearing, this is a film that kind of helps enhance both of what you're feeling, or rather both what you're seeing and hearing in two different aspects, and really heightening your senses in those cases, not only from the bright colors to help engage the viewer, but by removing some of the sound due to the fact that Hibiki doesn't like a lot of noise. We usually find him in areas where he's isolating himself from noise by covering his ears, so we hear what Hibiki hears, or he finds areas in which there is basically no one that he's explored within this bubble-destroyed Tokyo, where he goes to either practice parkour or be alone, or some places that he explores with Uta. Now, while there are very large moments in which sound is removed and there's a large void in what you're hearing, that is really well filled in with music. Now, some people may say that the music may not fit the type of sport that you'll see. I've seen people online say that, EDM tracks would probably fit a little bit better from the movements, and I could totally see that and get that. But you've got a legendary, at least from my perspective, legendary composer who has constructed the musical track for this movie, and the composer's name is Sawano Hiroyuki. Sawano Hiroyuki, or Hiroyuki Sawano if you're saying the name first name to last name. But Sawano Hiroyuki is the composer that's well known for basically almost all of the Attack on Titan OSTs, and more recently 86, which is a wonderful anime that you should check out. I have reviewed them in previous videos, so check out 86. 86. It's a masterpiece that I think most people are unaware of. But back to my main point. Sawano Hiroyuki constructs this very beautiful musical soundtrack to kind of go with the delicacy of some of the movements of the athletes and the delicacy of like Uta and Hibiki's like relationship development. Like the feelings I get when I hear some music from animes, I think is what draws tears out of me. Like, yes, the storylines draw tears out of me depending on what kind of storyline there is, but as I've mentioned, while the storyline is refreshing, there is some lackluster to some of the characters, which, can inhibit people from like feeling the connection that you need. The music fills the void for me. And the music just brings out some feelings and emotions that I don't think I would have felt otherwise. I strongly will say that with visuals, audio is on par. Wow. I'm having a really hard time talking today, people. Audio is on par with a visual. Like, they are neck and neck. And anyone who says otherwise, I will fight them. I will fight you if you tell me that Sawano Hiroyuki's soundtrack is not golden for this film. Cool. Well, I'm sorry I went on a auditory musical rant there at the end, but it's that great, essentially. So, like, I'll say that this movie was very beautifully animated, has a lot of big name directors and producers attached to it, and the musical composition is so great that I can listen to that on Spotify on repeat. The character development outside of Hibiki and Uta, there's like, it's non-existent. Even the character, just forget the development, just the characters, just the characters alone, they're boring, they're dry. I think this is the nicest way I can put it. And again, like, the parkour element is super cool. Like, I love that. That's dope. I don't know if there's any anime out there right now that's like parkour related. I'm sure there are some that has like parkour elements embedded into the show or movie, but I think that Bubble goes out of its way to emphasize that this is a parkour movie loosely based on the Little Mermaid, so there's a little bit of romance involved, but you also got sports. Yeah, I think that's best way to describe Bubble in a nutshell right there, actually. So like it's unique enough that I would say watch it for its uniqueness. But if you're a person that, if the storyline isn't there for you, or like the characters are flat, I'm gonna highly suggest that you skip this completely. Like, don't even waste your time. The movie is like an hour and 40 minutes. It's a large chunk of time. You could watch a bunch of other things within that time. Wow, I didn't realize I had that much to say about Bubble. Well, I hope it helps you figure out whether you want to watch Bubble or not. If you've watched Bubble already, I'd love to know in the comments how you felt about the film, what you thought about the characters, the storyline, the visuals, and even the music, if you paid attention enough to it. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in and watching my videos. It's largely appreciated. If you really enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe, or share, the usual, my friends. And until next time, I will see you all soon. This is Annie Mel, and I am the host, Mel.